Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Roth, and I'm the Marketing Communications Manager for Sierra Monitor's FieldServer product line. Thanks for joining us today for our webinar all about FieldSafe. The presentation will be around 30 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. If you have a question, please post it to the Q&A panel on your screen, and I will read your questions to Richard at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Richard Theron, the product manager for FieldServer.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Much appreciated. And thank you to all for joining us today. Appreciate you carving out a bit of time for us to show you the presentation on FieldSafe and what we're doing in the security for remote and local access. Let's just jump right in. What is happening in the marketplace, and I'm sure you're all very much aware of what's happening out there. If you look at the number of connected devices to IoT, and it's increasing every day, becoming more and more and more and more. And it's not just the IoT. If you look at local networks, I'd say from the beginning of 2000, the Ethernet connectivity got into the industrial market space, and you see the growth of the Ethernet-based protocols has grown rapidly. And when you talk about device connectivity, one thing that just amazed me, I was at Dreamforce about 2 years ago, and they even had a dog door, a little dog door that allows pets to come in and out. That was connected to the internet. It's not relevant to our industry at all, but it's amazing what is now connected. And with that connectivity, obviously the big thing these days is data security. How secure is my data? And it's not just data, it's my credentials as well. In the past, years gone by, it was up to the end user to sort out security. Times have changed now. It's now up to the equipment or the solution provider to convince the people in the field that the products are secure and what that security looks like. There are specifications out there which need to be adhered to. And there are many specifications out there going across the board, from industrial automation, building automation, from North America, from Europe, from Asia Pacific. These are worldwide standards. So it's not siloed into one geographical area. And with these security standards, the penetration testing has evolved tremendously. We've just been through our penetration testing for our hardware products and for our cloud. And from the last time we did it, we've seen a huge change in the specifications of what we need to adhere to in order to meet industry standards. And it's evolving as well. We're not sitting back and say, okay, we've passed, we're done. Every year we need to continue to test because the standards are moving so quickly. Even our cloud, we are actually testing it once a month because of new issues that do arise, new holes in the system that arise. So we need to constantly check it to make sure that we are providing a safe and secure solution to our end users. And why should we do this? It's the favorite one, target. I'm sure everyone knows about it. What is interesting actually to look at the cost ramifications of it. The lawsuit, 18.5 billion. The big one is a 202 million that actually cost target. Because why? Because someone did not keep the passwords for the building automation as secure to target. and someone managed to sniff the passwords, and they got in through the building automation portal, and then the damage was done, unfortunately. Okay, so that's sets the background. So what is FieldServer doing? We need to provide a safe and secure platform for our products going forward. We've adopted the marketing phrase FieldSafe for our secure solutions. So exactly, what is FieldSafe? We ensure that the hardware is secure, that our cloud is secure, and the connections are secure as well. From our cloud, we have web services, RESTful APIs. From a hardware, we got HTTP. We got to ensure that those connections are secure as well, as best as possible. And the connectivity, the web interface for configuration to our gateway, to ensure that is secure as well. And it's not just data, it's data and credentials. Because the last thing you want is someone to get hold of your credentials. Now they're in, and they can start getting hold of your data, logging into the system, creating issues within your private solution. Okay. So what have we done? What has FieldServer done to the products? There's been a lot of updating. The password requirements, adding user levels when you log in into the actual hardware platforms and the cloud platforms. We've encrypted user credentials. We've hashed and salted passwords. We've hardened all IP interfaces. We had a number of ports opened. As example, we used to have a telnet port open in the past. That's been closed. We've closed other ports, which I'll touch on a little bit later with regard to our toolbox, because it is a vulnerability. And the big one is, we've been through our penetration testing, which I cannot lie, was a lot of work from our behalf, but it was well worth it because of the need for security for today and tomorrow, and where we're going with security. We believe it's a common trend out there and a need. Okay, let's have a look at where we were and what we've done. Beforehand, we need to log in. It was optional. If you wanted to add a login, you could go into the unit and add it in. I would imagine that most people never used it, and with that login, it came basic encryption. It was not very secure. So what have we done now? Now we've set password by default. So coming out of the factory, all hardware now will have a default password, a unique password that is printed on the label, and there's a QR code on the label as well. And in that QR code is the password. As I said, it's a unique password, and it is an example of the password down below. And one of the questions that I had yesterday is, okay, well, I've forgotten I changed the password, I've forgotten it. Well, what do I do? You can put the unit into a factory reset mode, and will default to the unique password on the label or on the QR code. So that's in there. Access levels. Beforehand, we had 2 access levels, admin and user. We've now added a third level as operator. So as admin, you can go and do whatever you want. You can do all the configuration of the unit. You can set up the IP addresses. You can set up the profiles. You can change the configuration. As operator login, you can log into the unit, and you can test the unit. You can get to the data arrays. So if you wanted to write back data to say, okay, well, I need to change the set point or something like that, as operator, you can do it. And then as the viewer, all you can do is look at what is going on within the unit. You might log in and see, okay, well, I'm not receiving any data. It could be one of my units that, down the line that is not transmitting, or it's offline or something like that. So those are the 3 new levels that we now have available. Now for the gateway login, to set that up, you log into the graphical user interface within the unit. Once you've gone through the password credentials, you can then go in, you can change the password, and you can add up different users, either admin, operator, or viewer. And when you set up the passwords, you can do a very simplistic one, but it's going to warn you. It's going to say, this is a weak password. Or if you meet the credentials, it will then accept it and say, okay, this is good. We're not going to force people as to the strength of the password, but we will make recommendations. And it's a sort of industry standard that we've adopted with regard to password recommendations to ensure that it's something that people can't work out. The last thing you want is somebody to use admin. I think it's the first thing that anyone tries these days. And then going to security levels. In the past, we had a default HTTP, basic encryption, and it was very vulnerable to man-in-the-middle attacks. You could sit and you could capture the data and figure out, what is going on pretty quickly. So now we've got 3 different levels. We've got the standard HTTP, which is not secure. We've got HTTPS, the factory supplies the certificate, which is secure. But obviously what is most secure is HTTPS, when the certificate is actually signed by the local facility where the equipment is installed. When we went through our penetration testing, they highly recommended that we only have HTTPS with signed certificates from site. And we pushed back and we said, please, we'd rather give our end users the option. Because I would imagine that somebody gets to site and it's like, okay, well, I need to get the certificate signed. Who do I contact? I can just imagine delays and issues in there. So what we've done, we've given the option to the end user. Once they log into the unit, they can select what is required, because there are different security standards on different sites. Some people, it could be a military site or data center site, and they really want to lock things down. Okay, great. We've now got the tools in order to meet those stringent standards that would be required from those sites. And one thing is the warning. Just let people know. So when you do go in with HTTP, it's going to pop up and say, yes, you selected this, but we recommend HTTPS. So we always make recommendations. You can choose to ignore them. That's fine. It depends on what is needed on site. And when you first log into a unit, I think it's common practice these days. We will get a pop-up to say your connection is not private. I know with our company, often I get that when I go to different URLs and there's not, the HTTPS is not enabled, I get this pop-up. We firmly believe it's common practice. And that's why we're just assisting people and to make them aware of what's going on their security for their devices in the field. So in order to change the security levels, if we had HTTPS and on the URL it says not secure, you can then go in and then change it to HTTPS or HTTPS to have a certificate that is signed by the by the site. It could well be more likely 95% of the time it'd be the IT department would then need to sign the certificate. So just to give you an idea of what it actually looks like, when you get a signed certificate, that's what it looks like, and the private key, and then obviously you would need the passphrase from site as well, in order to make sure that it's as secure as possible, as per the requirements from site. I'd indicated early on that we've shut down a couple of ports. One of the ports is on the toolbox for the IP addresses. So beforehand, in order to change an IP address, you could go into the toolbox and change it, or you could use the GUI. The ability to change the IP address with a toolbox is not available anymore. So the new way is you can see what the IP address is via the toolbox, but you need to go into the GUI, the user interface, which is built into the FieldServer gateway, and you need to set up the IP address of the unit. And if you wanted to DHCP, that's available as well to set that up. Yeah. Man-in-the-middle attack. What's it all about? A person, a hacker, can sit on a network and start spoofing. So what they're essentially doing is the field server will think that it's communicating with the SCADA or device, but what it's actually doing, it's computing, it's interfacing to somebody sitting in the middle, capturing that traffic and just passing it on. So the field server thinks it's talking to the device, but nope, it's talking through the hacker. And that's one of the big things that we try to avoid, how to prevent the man-in-the-middle attack. And one of the ways to, or the way to avoid that is through certificates, through the public key infrastructure. So whereby, yes, this is a safe certificate. Obviously, the hacker will not have the signed certificates. So therefore, the field server will look and say, hey, wait a minute, I can't talk to you. You don't have a certificate, because that is what you've set up within the field server. Okay, we were running on signed certificates. When you log into the browser, you can see the signed certificate. You can go and check that it's from a reputable organization. So the signed certificate that we actually add to each of the field servers, yes, it can be used, and that might be sufficient for site. If they want to, they can click on the security logo in the URL. You can then go to the third party to ensure that it is safe. Okay. Part of FieldSafe, we've done more than just encrypt change the security infrastructure around it. We've even gone into the hardware side. We've for a while we've had wireless devices, either Wi-Fi or cellular, and going from Wi-Fi or cellular to an Ethernet port, there's actually a hard interface in between it. There's a physical interface, which essentially acts as a firewall. We're in the process of releasing a field server with 2 Ethernet ports, and yes, it's got other applications, such as whereby if you want to connect to 2 different subnets, perfect, that can do it. But the big one is if you want to connect a LAN to a WAN, it does that physical firewall of data. And then within the configuration, you can start limiting what you want to move across. We've now, when this product comes out, we've added additional firewalling to the WAN port. So you could say, I only want a connection to these IP addresses or from this URL. So we're never going to be a Cisco firewall, but we've added firewall features into the field server gateways to assist in the field to make things a lot more secure going out there. As soon as the product's released, we will do a release announcement and detail all the firewall capabilities that we'll have within our 2 Ethernet port unit. And then talk about general security. The other one is even within the protocols, and BACnet I'll touch on just now because there are changes to the BACnet specification. But with the common protocols, BACnet, Modbus, LONWORKS, SNMP, whatever those protocols are, there are things that one can do in order to protect. And we do allow people to write back. We do have that capability. So if you want to write back to a Modbus, of course you want to change the set point. Okay, great. But we can limit that. Do you want to write to all the set points, or is just a couple of set points which are critical that need to be done? So just to make you aware that within the field server, we can change the configuration to limit access to certain data points. One of my favorite examples is remote start of a generator set. And by safety laws, you're not allowed to do that. You have to be on site. Could we do it through a field server gateway? Yes, we can. But it is not recommended because of safety laws. You actually need to be on site when you remotely start a generator set. But those data points are there that do allow for it. So one just has to be careful when setting up the data points. Talk about BACnet. Talk about security and BACnet. The BACnet International has now come out with BACnet SC. SC standing for Secure Connect. The beta was released in March of this year. Interoperability testing is starting later in the year. And the whole thing about BACnet is securing a BACnet network. Beforehand, you could get a browser, jump at the network, and you could sniff all the data, see what is going on in that network. You could write to data points. You could actually run a mockery with a BACnet browser. So this is now changing. So whereby if you don't have a secure device that is accepted by that BACnet SC network, you can't get into it. With BACnet SC, it allows for connections to get to the cloud. It is cut out BBMD, so you can, with BACnet SC, you can start routing between different subnets. And MSA Field Server is part of the accelerated program. And it's interesting to see the companies that have jumped on board very quickly. The likes of ABBs, the Johnson Controls. There's specific companies like MBS in Germany is on board. And a lot of these companies have got a global presence, like the Trains of the world, the Honeywells of the world, Belimas of the world. They've got a global presence. So this is going globally very quickly. There are some companies that are on beta testing at the moment. We are looking to release this in Q1 of next year, all going well. As I said, our engineers are very much part of the accelerated program and just being aware of implementation and what it looks like. I mentioned the toolbox early on, and because of the ports have already shut down, I'd indicated that setting the IP address on the secure gateways is not available anymore. You have to go to the GUI, and the other one is the diagnostic capture. Beforehand, you could fire up the FieldServer Toolbox. If you don't know what the FieldServer Toolbox, it is a Windows-based utility that you can pull off our website. So with the toolbox in the past, you could actually run the diagnostic capture from the toolbox. But because of the ports we've shut down, that is no longer available from the toolbox. But what we've done we've added the diagnostic feature within the GUI of the FieldServer gateway. So once you're logged into the FieldServer gateway securely, you can then run the diagnostic captures. And the diagnostic captures are of great assistance when you're troubleshooting. Our support team often prefers to have that diagnostic capture available before when they start to diagnose issues on the field. They can very quickly see if it's nodes offline, if a device is not responding, if there's a problem with the configuration. It's very powerful to have. So on all in your hardware platforms, the diagnostic capture is built into the unit itself. Okay, so this is all great. What are the hardware platforms that we're releasing it on? So FieldServer is only releasing on our newer platforms, as you can see. And people that know us well, it's all our products running an ARM7 processor. On the right, you can actually see that's our new LTE cellular unit. That is, the processor has been released, and you can see the 2 Ethernet port one as well. That product will be available in September of this year. We're busy finishing it up, going through certifications. We're doing final configuration of the unit and testing at the moment. So I believe that's going to be a great product for the applications that demand that extra layer of security out there. So talking about security, okay, so what about the units in the field? I've got a new unit in the field. Can I upgrade in the field? Yes, you can. Just one thing, when you upgrade in the field, the unique password is added to a unit in the factory. So it will not have a unique password on it. We've defaulted to admin as admin as the password, which is not the best, but you can very easily upgrade that. And as I indicated, when you're going to change the password, it will then prompt you to ensure that that is a strong password to prevent people to figuring it out. And if you want to upgrade units in the field, you're not quite sure if it is actually in the ARM7 platform or newer platforms, please contact your local regional sales manager or come through our support line, and they can help you very quickly just to figure out what units you have, and they can assist you with downloading the secure gateway firmware. Another thing going forward as well, for the units that are cloud connected, we will be able to download the secure gateway firmware via the cloud to units that are connected in the field. Okay, so in wrapping up, just a quick overview of what we have been talking about, all the FieldServer penetration testing. If you wanted to get those certificates, please contact us, either sales team or support team, and we're happy to share the certificates with you. We can even share the reports with you on our penetration testing. Just one thing about the gateway penetration testing, there are 2 findings in there. And those 2 findings are eliminated when you have a self-signed certificate by the people on site. So within the findings, you will see there's a note in there as well to say that if you select HTTPS, self-signed, these 2 findings disappear. Because as soon as you show it to somebody, say, "Oh, findings, this is not secure." Well, you can make it secure out there. We can get the cloud penetration testing. You can get the reports. We are SB 327 compliant. The certificates are available, as you mentioned, hashed and salted passwords, SSL, and using TLS 1.3. And all these all these features are available in the data sheets. If you want more information, just go to our website and you can get the data sheets. And if not, just contact us if you've got additional questions about the security, what it looks like, and about product availability. Yeah. With that, I'd like to thank you all for joining. And Jenny, are there any questions?
Yes, there are several questions that came in throughout the presentation, so we'll get started on those. One, I'm going to combine this. Who makes your FieldSafe gateways, and are they certified for utilities, smart metering, and IIoT?
Okay. We make all our own, we manufacture all our own gateways. And the secure gateway firmware, we have implemented that ourselves. And as I indicated before, and they're all third-party tested. So in the metering department, in the metering section, it depends on what specification you're trying to meet. If there's a specific one, please just contact us, and we can quickly let you know. But there are, I think it was the second or the third slide. There are a lot of standards out there, and do we have all those certificates? No. Could we meet those certificates with our current implementation? I firmly believe so.
Okay. Some more, what types of protocol do you support, such as MQTT, NMP3, etc.?
Okay. From our cloud, we support webhooks and RESTful API. And then from a select section of our hardware platforms, we support MQTT. So we have applications where we need to connect to different clouds directly from our hardware platforms, and we do have MQTT. And if you want details of our implementation, just contact support or our sales team, and we can share the implementations with you.
Okay. Let's see, is anything going to change on the existing FieldServer interface on the web browser FieldPop for BACnet setup, or a new processor for BACnet?
Okay, yeah, good question. So yes, it will change from when you log into the units, yes. But for setting up the unit, it's identical. If you're utilizing profiles, if you're utilizing our BACnet IoT gateway, that part is identical. With the BACnet IoT gateway, the ability to go and scan a network and select the object that you want and connect to them. So that's identical. What will change, as example, the BACnet IoT gateway, when we come out with BACnet SC, so that is a change to the protocol itself. So when that comes out, there will be changes with regard to configuration of the BACnet networks. But as I said, we're a number of months away, 6 to 9 months away from releasing BACnet SC. So when that comes out, obviously we will detail and we'll have another presentation just on BACnet SC and on our implementation and give you an overview of the configuration of our gateway suite with regard to BACnet SC.
Okay. Are your gateways certified to work with private networks such as Bell, Roger, TELUS in Canada, and Verizon and AT&T in the US?
Yes, we are. We've been through, some of them require PTCRB, and we do have our PTCRB certificates, and we have been approved by those different networks. So we are good for our cellular connections.
Okay, and what standard of digital certificate do you use? I think you already covered that.
Yeah, so that's been covered by the certificate itself.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to, as it indicated, you can go to the URL and you can click on the certificate, and you can see the authorizing body. we got the certificates from, which is digitally signed.
Okay, does your modem support pass-through feature?
Okay, with regard to pass-through, in the gateway itself, we do have, from the protocol side, we do certain pass-throughs. Like with Modbus, we do pass-through. For BACnet, we have the BACnet router. It depends on what pass-through actually mean, because we also have VPN capabilities. So if somebody wanted to remotely connect to a network, and I would see, VPN as actually pass-through. So if you wanted to utilize your own firmware and connect to a device remotely, we can do that. But pass-through could actually mean to the cloud. So with regard to pass-through, we will take the data that is needed and push what is needed up into the cloud. It's one thing we've done with our client connections. We very sensitive, people say, what data do you want? Send me everything. There's a cost of sending all data. So our products essentially are edge devices when connecting to the cloud. We sit on the edge and we filter out the traffic that is required for read or write capabilities. So we don't do a pass-through such, just moving data to the cloud. Hopefully that answered your question in a bit of a long-winded way.
Okay, there's a couple follow-up questions. Does it support failover for redundancy? Does it also support RS-232, 485, 422?
Okay. Yes, we do support RS-232, 485. We can set up redundant field servers. But the interesting thing is, when you look at a redundancy, what is redundant? Are the end devices redundant? Do you want redundant gateways? Are there redundant networks? And what is that? We actually had a big installation many years ago on the oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico, because everything is so critical on the oil rigs, everything had to be redundant. So with our devices, we ran the hardware was actually redundant. So not just redundant connections, redundant hardware. So we have done redundant applications in the past. Please contact us with regard to redundant networks, because one has to fully understand is what is the requirement from site. What do they want with regard to redundancy?
Okay, another one. Previously, just inserting default IP at web browser took us to the field server GUI when processor is connected. Do we need to have login information from now on?
Correct. For new units that have got our secure gateway built in, yes. So as soon as you type in the IP address, you'll get a pop-up and it'll ask you for your passwords. As it indicated, the unique password is on the label on the field server and or the processor. And you can also utilize the QR codes. So you could scan the QR code, say, if you've got eyesight similar to mine, and you forgot your glasses, you're not going to read it, unfortunately. But yeah, it's normally, anyone in reasonable eyesight, you could see it, but some people say, no, I'd rather have it in the QR code. So we added the password into the QR code. So somebody just wants to grab it, grab that password, and then, they can go to the laptop and input that unique password.
Okay. Another question, are these IP68 compliant?
IP68. Our devices are IP54. IP68 is very stringent. I mean, IP67 is 1 meter. It needs to work, 1 meter under the water. We have had applications where we do require IP67, and for IP67, we've just used an enclosure to put our gateways into, and that's met the requirement through a enclosure.
Okay, I think that's all of the questions from the group. These are all great questions, lots of engagement there. So do you want to tell everyone when FieldSafe will be available and when the dual Ethernet gateway will be available?
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you very much. For the integrated products, for the quick servers, we are shipping with FieldSafe already. For our OEM customers, we are introducing FieldSafe to them, and once they accept it, and some of them actually wanted to test it to ensure, because they might have their own manuals. You know, when customers are utilizing, say, the processor, you know, they might have their own manuals that they need to update. So for our OEM customers, it is available at the moment, but obviously once they have accepted it, we then will start shipping their product with the secure gateway. With regard to the 2 Ethernet port, it will be available in September. We do have samples going out to a couple of customers at the moment. So that's starting to ramp up on the 2 Ethernet port gateway.
Okay, great. I think that's everything. So if anyone has any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me or Richard. I think you have my contact information from the WebEx events invite. And we will follow up with a recording of this session and a follow-up email to keep in touch with you. Richard, anything else you want to share?
That's all from my side. Thank you very much, Jenny, for putting this together, and thank you everyone for attending. We appreciate the time that you carved out for us.